coming. I'm Kate Kostopoulos. I'm the director of Chase Young Gallery, and this is Bear Tasman, as most of you know. This is the nth millionth show we've had here.
We're not counting anymore.
We've been showing his work here since the 90s. One
Yes.
of our founding artists, I would say, of the gallery.
And
So-
before over on
In Newberry Street.
Newberry Street,
Yeah.
which most of you still remember, or some of you, I think, right? Yes.
Yeah, so I'm delighted to be doing this again. Finally, we get to have a talk in person. We haven't done this in a long time. So I'm pleased that you all are here to join us, and here we have Bear Tasman.
All right, so what I'm doing today, for the first time in a very, very long time, is I want to read something. Art, to me, is mostly about improvisation and is mostly about connecting spontaneously. And I want to see how it feels to me to do it different again, because it is all about that change of mind. The show is called Reverse, and I will talk to you about that. So, if I may, don't be scared. I won't read all of it. But art is sweaty, but it's also serious business, right? And it's a important, I think, factor of our being here. I will speak to you in words about something that I am already communicating through my work. We can talk about something. It is always the about that separates us from the real thing, the direct experience. As soon as there is one thing, one object, there inevitably will be another. Words name things. Words claim things. Words are in the way of what we call direct experiencing. Direct experiencing is what I call art, A-R-T, and most of you know that. No separation, zero distance. You are it. You are art, you are awareness. Unfortunately, our conditioned view gets always stuck in the awareness of something. We cannot see the big picture. We find infinite ways to disassociate and to ignore the big picture. Separation always creates distance and conflict. I trust art, A-R-T, to be one way to put things back together. The Advaita Vedanta speaks of the I am. Sri Nisargadatta and Ramani Maharaj are two famous teachers that speak of that tradition. Notice that the I am doesn't add something like I am this or I am that. It just is the I am. It suggests to return to the original being, the real thing, non-divisible, oneness, sameness, togetherness. the one in the many, and the many out of one, to which everything returns. Why are we talking about this? About ancient wisdom traditions, philosophy, even sciences, when we talk about art? Because it's my experience and understanding and wish that all these different approaches of trying to make sense ultimately will point at the same thing. Where one ceases to be helpful, the other one can pick up. They are all in their own unique way, and together create openings for deeper understanding and compassionate participation. In reality, I don't make art. Art comes to me. It makes me. Ellen Watts, you did not come into this world, you came out of it. The world is your body. I speak to you in words because that's what you want, and that is how we are conditioned to communicate. I feel obliged to deliver, and I tremendously enjoy seeing you and speaking to you. And if you wish, I'm happy always, as you know, to give you a helping hand. But it has to come from you. It's a participatory event, and even here later on, we will hopefully enter into a beautiful discussion about art and how it affects us and all these things. We must understand that words can only be the next best thing, not the whole thing, not the whole truth. A quote by a Buddhist master, maybe one of you knows who it was, I forget. He said, as soon as you say something, you tell a lie. But if you say nothing, you are a coward. And that's really, really important right now, because I know many of you that speak up, that still speak up, and talk about what they're concerned with, and are not hiding behind some facade or convention. So it's important to speak up, even though it will never be the entire truth. It cannot be, because words don't have that capacity. Right? You know that. So I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for participating in that which I call arting. So, if I may, I will talk a little bit about the show and the title, Reverse. And reverse, we were debating, should it even be with an exclamation mark? But then it seemed a little too much of right? So, but let's start, where does the word come from? And it's always helpful to me, and I suggest that when we speak in words, it's important to understand what they mean and where they come from, and how their meaning might have changed over time. So RE of reverse. RE means again or change. Versus means the left page, the left-hand page of a book, or the reverse side of a leaf, or the back side of a coin. So left, verso, right, recto. The most obvious reason why I choose this title is because the words in this exhibit are mostly painted in reverse, in verso, on the back, on the other side. The result of my actions bleed through the canvas, the Summa pieces, or show their mirrored face behind the acrylic glass. This series is from Nature of Things review. To reverse my habits, my habitual actions of approach, the work sharpens my awareness and challenges my preconditioned mind. It is my wish and hope that the reviewer of these works may be challenged in a similar way that I have been as I was making the works. Art shakes up the mind. In both series, and this may be true for most of my art and that of other artists, it is up to the reviewer to recover their truth, content in the work, or what we intend to put into it, to connect and understand it, and to make it their own. In order to imagine their own picture requires the viewer or the reviewer's active participation. In fact, it is an act of recovery of one's own truths and qualities of presence, one's own strengths, and also one's doubts, concerns, questions, memories, compassions. Our intrinsic values and our comprehension of beauty and peace. The viewer is always the reviewer. And what each one of us may find is one of infinite truths. Art reactivates these truths in us. Reverse also means change of direction, change of view, change of mind, change of action. Considering the opposite of what we have learned to believe to be true. Art challenges all convention. Art confronts us with what we didn't think we knew. Art confronts us with what we didn't think we knew. To reverse our way shakes up our conditioned state and strongly suggests a rethinking of everything, of who we are, of how we think, and how we act in this world. Rilke said, you must change your life. That is the final line of a poem he wrote after working for Rodin in Paris. And this might have triggered this poem by seeing Rodin's work. The poem itself speaks of that which is beyond the surface. And it invites the viewer to complete in her own mind what, in this case, is damaged. All the remains of a marble sculpture of Apollo is a torso. Rilke suggests that when we look deeper, beyond the surface, we might be able to access the whole thing. That's of course true for all art and not just sculpture. We shouldn't get stuck on the surface or on technique. What he means, I believe, is when he says you must change your life, is to stop and put everything in reverse, to be still and to listen and see with our eyes closed. When Rilke wrote this 100 years ago, it was true. And I feel it's truer than ever for me, for you, and the world we are part of. Alfred North Whitehead, to have seen it from one side only is not to have seen it. We have a different angle here. Ian McGilchrist, who I spoke about often in the past to many of my friends here. From one angle, one part of a sculpture is visible. With only one fixed point of view, only part of reality is visible. To see the whole thing, we must change perspective. We must change our mind. We must change our lives. And that's why I suggest reverse with an exclamation mark. So I want to leave it at that, and maybe if you're not too exhausted later, I will read you a poem that I wrote, which I think fits. But if I may, and invite you and you, let's try to make it a nice conversation together and learn from each other. And if you have a question, ask, but maybe you want to start and we ease
Sure.
together into the real part, in the improvisation, in the art part
Sure. Well,
of this.
these pieces for me are really special because oftentimes when I think about your work, and maybe some of you may have thought this too, but I think of bright, bold, energized, textured, bam, like these back
Yes.
here. These are very much in that
Yes.
what I'm describing. So when we first put together this show, it was like a wash of breath that kind of like falls over you. And I would love to hear from you about how you can go, like how both philosophically and physically, I guess, what it means to create work that's this way, and then to go to something like this that's so delicate, that's almost like it needs a wall at the end of a hallway with like a single light that you can just come back and forth, and
Yes.
it's a whole feeling, it's an atmosphere that's created with that.
Yeah, I mean that's a beautiful question and a beautiful observation, and of course you see it, and I hope you all see it and see not a mishmash of two different worlds, because here we have two aspects of my work, but here you have the third aspect of my work, and on that little table back there you have yet another. There's one thing that I promised myself when I started very early on, that I would never repeat myself, and that I would never surrender to any convention. Now that's a big statement.
It's very accurate though.
I try to live my life with the support and participation of Annie and my friends in that way. I try to be it. So that poem will actually talk about this a little bit, but just to, we are many things. We are not just one thing. We are out of many, and we are returning to the one. I mean, we are part of that many, I should be clear about. So one day you need energy, one day you need like, whoa, right? And the other day you need like, so art can help you get there, like breathing, like meditating, like all these practices, right? Art is one. When I feel sad or any surface emotions or surface feelings, I would rather say, I try not to put that into the work. So it's not, oh, it must have felt really good and so peaceful that day. It's not that what reflects in the work, or what reflects the work is not my state of presence in that moment. It's more of a deeper state that I try to access when I do the work. So no matter how messy or wild or active or macho or ba-bomb these works are, I try to access them from a deeper state. So I'm not trusting my surface emotions. So that's maybe part of the answer. How can I do this all? Because you, like me, like every one of us, has many, many, many different parts that when we go inside becomes one, and then when it's one, we can retrieve it.
Yeah.
One day it's sunny, one day it's rainy.
Yeah, it's like we are many components that
Yes.
make up who we are. So
Yes.
these various, I mean, I think I have said this before, but one of the things I so appreciate about Bernd's work is this ability to remain constant through sameness. Like, you can always tell that it's his work, even when it's so different from the thing that came before and that came before that. There's a underlying sense of familiarity with the work that's part of identity, right? It's a part of, you know, if you were to put your whole self out there as pieces of art, of course you would see a little of this and a little of that, but in the end it would all be you. And I think that's what's so great about how every show is like something different, but yet something that's very familiar.
Of course, I take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment.
It's not easy. It's so easy to get stuck. It's so very, very easy to just keep repeating the same thing because it gives you comfort up to a point. and it's so exhausting often, but ultimately so much more helpful and adding when you work against that, actively challenge yourself. And so, as you know, I've often challenged myself with different surfaces. This challenge, as I tried to say earlier, when you paint from reverse, I mean, how the heck could you be in control? You have no idea what's going on the other side, right? And that's a beautiful relief. You can let go. Art is not a convention. It doesn't have to fit any convention.
So along those lines,
Yes,
when you're painting from reverse,
yes,
obviously you're adding layers, you don't see what's revealed on the other side.
yes.
So during the process, do you ever like look at the other side to see what's being revealed to
Would
sort
that
of
be
implement
cheating?
control? Well, yeah, it would be implementing more
Yeah.
control
Yeah.
versus waiting until the end and then turning around
Yes.
and then when you do, are you surprised? Is it
Yes,
different than you
it's-
intended?
It's very easy with the reverse glass paintings, because there you really don't know, and it's usually when the glass comes, it has a protective cover
Oh,
over
okay.
it, right? It
Okay.
comes, and you peel that off at the last moment, and that of course is
Big reveal.
it's a bit of indulging, I admit, because then you really see it for the first time. And you're surprised because what you drew or painted is on the other side. I mean, like what I painted, what I drew when I draw this shape on the left, and I peel off this thing. Whoa, it's on the other side. That looks stupid. It doesn't make sense. There's no balance. It doesn't work aesthetically or what. And so all these things come up because the conventional view wants to be pleased, wants to be satisfied, right? So it is, of course I'm curious, and here in those pieces I cannot cheat.
Yeah.
In the canvas pieces, they are like time lapses, they're time pieces. The canvas pieces are done over a few years. And I just completed them, or I just called them complete. All right, that's it. Right? They could have gone on and on and on and on. But there, of course, I see what's happening, but I try my best not to interfere. Art, I think, can only happen when we step back, when the artist steps back and tries to interfere as little as he or she can. Right? So,
Speaking of interference.
Yeah.
Yeah, so-
Hearings.
yeah, this is, yeah,
This guy's never in his studio, just today, special for
Yeah.
us, so.
yeah. And he's moving the easel,
Yeah.
and he will turn on some very loud music at the moment.
I have a question about the canvas pieces.
Yes.
How much of, and I know you mentioned, so maybe share a little bit about what's different about the rawness of these.
Yes.
And how
Yeah,
that
yeah.
works with the paint.
Yeah, this is raw linen, and it's very porous. It's not a tight, like 15 or 20 ounce canvas, right? Where it's so tight that nothing comes through. This is intentionally on that very loose linen, so things bleed through, like through a cheap sheet of paper. And of course, since this is happening over a long time period, and I put them aside, and you've been to my studios, and they're usually pretty messy. And of course, things will also stick to the surface, or I put two pieces together, and whoops, and so I rip them apart again. But I would almost call these summa pieces. Summa is the sum of things, not or like an abstract in a paper, in a summa. But mostly the title speaks about the accumulation over time. We could say there are trapping moments that would have been lost. It's a little bit like, I don't know, a friend of mine took a photo once in an attic, and he took off actually an old mirror, and the mirror was still there. I mean, the negative print, the layers of dust, and you could still see the outline of the shape. So these are traps. These are trapping presence. These are consciousness traps that I lay out, that I set up for myself, so consciousness gets trapped. I say, whoa! Where did that red thing come from? So, yes. But I try to work with materials, not against them. I try to get inspired to a degree, but ultimately it's the work that finds the appropriate substrate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, there's a lot of play and a lot of chance in these pieces.
Yeah. What do you feel is the biggest challenge about working this way compared to if you're...
It challenges your mind differently. It's really that. It really affects your approach because you're confused. On the reverse paintings, another thing is you know, like you paint something on the back of a glass sheet, and the first thing that you paint will be the front thing, will be on the top. That's what you see. And everything else will come after. In most painting techniques, you can add and add until you get to a solution that is helpful to you. Here it's pretty much the opposite.
Mm-hmm. So the glass pieces have some etching as well.
Yes. Many years ago I did a lot of etching and silk screen and stuff like that, all kinds of printing techniques. And I think that kind of bled through as well, was seeping through my memory of doing print work,
Mm-hmm.
where you have always that sensation of you lift the paper and you see this whoa thing. So the etching, it's really etched into the glass with a tool not unlike the tools that I would have used for etching,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the color, or the black, in most of these cases, gets kind of, how would you say, kind of rubbed in,
Mm-hmm.
same way as you would, I don't know how many of you still remember like old-fashioned printmaking. You put the paint on and then you rub it off until the paint only sits in those little
The reliefs.
reliefs. Yes. So that is, in a way, a coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Art is always, I feel, coming back. And this is a personal coming back to printmaking that I did 30, 40 years ago. The imagery of that is also related to something I did 30, 40 years ago, which was called A Walk in the Field. Right? Yes. But it's not the same, it's different, because I'm the same, but I'm different. I am, but I also am this and that, and the guy and so old, and from such and such background. There's always that conflict between the I am and the I am